non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Previously, with the winning a Super Bowl in Los Angeles, we were able to really get better every single week. Even when we had a tough time in November, we were able to kind of use that adversity to help propel us through December on into January and be playing our best when it absolutely mattered. And I learned a lot from that. And now getting to be the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, offensively speaking, I see a lot of similar traits to what we did in Los Angeles, but this is our team. This is our opportunity to build something unique, different, but still keep some of the core principles that we feel very, very strongly about.
That is new Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell speaking today, Wednesday, at the NFL Scouting Combine, doing his media access there. Welcome into Purple Daily. Phil off the rest of the week, so it's Judd and Declan, sponsored as always by our friends at Surly Brewing Company. If you haven't tried it, you'll want to, especially that delicious beer, the official beer of Judd, the Furious, and also by our friends at TCL TV. If you are watching sports and aren't doing it on a TCL TV, I flat out tell you, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. TCL TV is a great experience. Sports on TCL look magnificent. All right. So this was the day that O'Connell talked to the assembled press at the Combine. He actually talked to the beat people and had some interesting comments yesterday in Indy. New general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah talked to the press both at the podium and a side session yesterday. We discussed that, Declan, on Purple Daily, but I want to backtrack on something that we discussed a little bit, and Kwesi's comments had just come out when we talked about this. It's the reaction and the discussion about Kirk Cousins. And sort of the way that the messages from both the GM and coach could be shaped as they talked about Kirk. And this is going to be a Kirk-free bash zone, okay? But I feel it's important to explain this because I think there's some confusion here. And Kirk's defenders are like, you guys twisted their words. And Kirk's critics were like, no, what the coaches and GM are saying isn't true and blah, blah, blah. So here's where I think, in trying to parse apart what was said, here's where we're at right now. And where I will give Kwesi credit is this one. He's right. This is fluid. All right. So no definitive decisions have been made. I think it's very important to point that out. So he's not lying about that. But here's where I think things lie. So in trying to parse apart all of the quotes that we saw on Tuesday from Indy, I think it's fair to say this. Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell do not hate Kirk Cousins. I think that they see attributes there. I think that they think, as most folks do, if we can work with him, he can be improved. He can be better. We can get the most, and O'Connell keeps talking about this, we can get the most from Kirk possible. I believe he is telling the truth. Here's what they're not telling you, and here's where it gets dicey. And this is not bashing Kirk. This is the business of the National Football League, Declan Goff. The sides have clearly, so the Vikings and the Kirk camp, which involves probably the most important person, his agent, a guy by the name of Mike McCartney, who got Kirk both of his last two contracts. They have clearly met. In fact, Kwesi said, we've met. What he didn't tell you is when. All right. But go back, Dex, a couple of weeks. Do you recall when it came out, it leaked out that Kirk Cousins had told the Vikings, and more importantly, his agent had told the Vikings, Kirk will do an extension, but he is not taking a discount. Like, Kirk is not going to do, hey, you know what, you guys, I've made a lot, and I will take a 3-year extension, and let's walk those cap hits way back. It came out that Kirk had said, I'll do an extension, which will help you cap-wise for 2022, and bring down the current $45 million cap hit that Kirk is set to incur against the cap for the Vikings. But I want a market value deal going forward, which would mean that he essentially wants a base salary to increase from $35 million in 2022 to $40 million in 2023. So it's clear that meeting took place. All right. And here's where we now can read into and interpret Adolfo Mensa's comment about Kirk among the many things he said, because part of the art of this is talking a lot. It's saying a ton of stuff. We love the guy. And then in the middle, we're going to drop in a sort of a curious statement. Kwesi said, we will do what's best for the Minnesota Vikings, and Kirk will do what's best for Kirk. Okay. That is a reference. And people were trying to interpret that because it's interesting. That is clearly a reference to the fact that they've met. And the Vikings wisely realize that if Kirk is not going to back off his contract demands, it creates some question marks. Like they're not going to rush in and be like, okay, damn it, we tried, sign our extension. That's where that becomes intriguing. The next part of what is a very fluid situation that continues to play out will take place. My guess, I don't know for sure, but my guess is at some point this week at the Combine, when McCartney and the Vikings will sit down again. Okay. So they are going to sit down again at some point here soon and have to talk about his contract. And at some point in time, I think, Dex, if Kirk doesn't back off and say, okay, let's try and make this work for me and you, as opposed to Kirk will do what's best for Kirk, then I think the Vikings are forced with, do we try and trade him? Do we take the 2022 cap hit, as big as that's going to be, and just allow him to play this out? Or do we bite the bullet and sign him to an extension that nobody really finds palatable? So just to try to read through this entire thing, that's where things stand. Yep. So it's like there's no like smoking gun yet of, oh, Kirk is staying, and there's no smoking gun of Kirk is gone. But to go back to, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was our old friend from ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, who broke the story, to go back to Kirk saying, I have no intention on redoing my contract and taking a salary cut, which you have broached multiple times as being the ideal thing. That's where I think things stand, and why nobody is fully committing to, we like Kirk and damn it, he's back. They're saying we like Kirk, but everybody has to do what's best. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it totally makes sense. And that's where I'm at with it. I'm not surprised that Kwesi and Adolfo Mensa has met with Kirk's representation and his agent and are looking at talking about the future. Good. I think it'd be weird if Kwesi hadn't met with his agent yet. At this point, I mean, he's been on the job now, right? What, Judd, like 6 weeks? A little more than a month. So about 6 weeks. At
some point, yeah.
And so they've definitely had a discussion. Yep. But I think the point of, all right, where can we meet here, Kirk? What's your demands? And here's what we can also give you. And if, honestly, to make a apples oranges comparison, if the MLB is saying this and the players want this, well, we have a lockout here. We have an impasse, and we don't know how we're going to solve this. If one people want a certain amount and the other people don't want a certain amount, and if one side isn't willing to play ball and the other side is, it's going to cause some friction. So I'm curious on what that extension potentially could look like with the Vikings, but I'm going to assume that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell have a certain number in mind of the Kirk camp that says, all right, Kirk, yes, we want to smooth out the $45 million cap hit, and we want you here for, let's call it the long haul, but here's what we can do. Here's the best we can do for you. And if you can't meet us somewhere or meet us at that demand, then we're going to explore every avenue at making our roster better for the long haul then. I think, and that's fair on them. That's not us trying to usher out Kirk. That's not us bashing Kirk. That's the reality the Vikings face. They're over the cap. They have significant problems they have to address on their team in general when it comes to finding their next cornerbacks, what to do to Danielle Hunter's future. They have a draft to plan for in less than 8 weeks. There's a lot of things on the checklist. And to be honest, keeping your quarterback happy should be near the top of that priority list, and knowing who is our franchise quarterback going into that draft is very important because it could change your draft plans. So, yes, I'm glad that Kwesi has met with them, and I just hope that dialect has happened. And if Kirk, by the way, is willing to say, because I want this on the record too, because everyone thinks we're just Kirk bashers. If Kirk comes to them and says, you know what, all right, I'm in. I'll do that extension at X amount of dollars because it's going to help this team and help our case to win a Super Bowl, then I'm all in. And honestly, I would applaud Kirk for that. I would beyond give him the round of applause for having the realization that I have to make less money and I'm all in on this plan with Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell. That's going to maximize everything. So that's kind of where I stand with it.
And let's go through this too from the different participants, okay? Because O'Connell, for sure, when asked by Kwesi, by the Wilfs, but by the committee that was put together to vet the head coaching candidates, Kevin O'Connell for sure said, I can work with Kirk. Yeah, I worked with him before. Like, I am sure that what has come out is all true. That Kevin O'Connell said, yeah. Now, does that mean that he loves Kirk as much as has been indicated? It's in his best interest to say, if you have a quarterback, I can work with him. But everybody from Kwesi to O'Connell to the assistant coaches now, Dex, everybody has to have a breaking point of, okay, I can't do that. And in Kirk's case, I don't think it's necessarily like, well, he's gone because I can't stand him. I think it's at that price, we can't build a team good enough for me to prop up Kirk. So like if we're talking about Brady here, right? It's like, okay, Tom Brady's unbelievable. And we need to build around him, but the art of building around him isn't going to take as much as Kirk. So I don't think it's that O'Connell has said, get him out. I think O'Connell has probably honestly said, this is how far I can take this. And at this price point, it's too much because I can't make Kirk a player that doesn't have a guard or two guards, right? Like I can't do that. I can only work so many potential Kirk miracles here. And so that's where I think it's a very fair, not a bashing discussion, but if Kirk is saying, I want to be paid like a top quarterback in this league, O'Connell would be a fool to say, we'll make that work. So, I mean, this is a smart play. And this is why everybody is saying, we like Kirk. We think that Kirk can be in our system if we surround him. But keep in mind, O'Connell talked about this. They both talked about what, Dex? They both talked about bringing in the parts around Kirk, right? So like we want to have a team offensively that is tailored to what Kirk does. But what does that require? Money. So like this is all about the contract, and it's very fair. And if Cousins' representatives continue to say he is going to break the bank, I think that they are faced with, and this is not Kirk bashing, it's not even Kirk supporting, it's reality. It's realistic podcasting. I think that they are faced with a decision of, okay, we just can't do that. Like we can go so far and that's it. But we're talking about offensive line expenditures. We are talking about at some point in time soon, probably a year from May, Justin Jefferson being extended, and that ain't going to be cheap. And guess what? It shouldn't be cheap. So anyway, I think to parse through all of these quotes without anybody thinking that like this is some type of passionate, we are trying to just get Kirk out of town. This is a business negotiation, nothing more, nothing less. And at some point in time, they're either going to reach a place where everybody is satisfied and happy and this team can be built, or they're going to get to a place where they say, from the Viking standpoint, we can't do what we want with you making that much. And I think it's as simple as that. And I think the quotes have been very fair from both sides.
I agree. I think it's been a very, very fair and delicate process here. And I'm curious where it goes. I know Kevin O'Connell spoke today. Theater. And it's phenomenal stuff. I'm excited for this next era.
All right. Speaking of the next thing, as you just said, O'Connell spoke today at the Combine. He talked about the offensive line. He talked about Garrett Bradbury. Let's play that clip and react to what Kevin O'Connell had to say about the guys who are right now going to be protecting Kirk Cousins.
You know, as I really started to study the roster, the offensive line jumped out at me. The skill sets of both our guys on the edge, the tackle position is very strong. I think the guard position, there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot to like. And then in my mind, obviously, Garrett Bradbury in the middle is what you look for from a core center from the standpoint of communicating. We do a lot of things. We ask our center to do a lot of things. I know Mason Cole did a great job last year as well. So you look at the tape and you just study the tape. There's a lot to like there. There's a lot to build off of. And a lot of people want to talk about building an offense for the quarterback position or maybe the skill players, but you do it for the offensive linemen as well and all those guys across the board, the depth we have. It's exciting because you can do a lot of different things with that group, and I know I cannot wait to get started with those guys.
I'd like to play a little game with you.
Okay.
It's called Did Kevin O'Connell's nose grow during the answer? Did he go Pinocchio? All right.
Pinocchio, yes. Yeah.
I'm going to start with this one.
Okay.
His emphasis on the tackles. Did Kevin O'Connell's nose grow and go Pinocchio when talking about Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill? The floor is yours.
I think that's accurate.
I do too.
I think that part's accurate. Those are your
Talented.
two. That part
right?
makes sense. Yeah, true.
I agree. I think his nose stayed exactly the same. I don't think there was any woo. I don't think that. I think he was being honest. All right, let's move inside. Did Kevin O'Connell's nose grow when he talked about the guards?
Here's the fun part. What he said. He said we have great depth.
I know that's why we're playing the game, baby.
Which is true. There is
but is it
guys
great?
There?
Or right, but is it great or is it just we have depth? I think his nose grew a little bit, like not terribly long. Yeah, sure. I think. Oh no, I think it grew a little bit.
Okay.
Because and plus, I will say this: Ezra Cleveland might be good, right? Like, I don't think he was a disaster.
Yep.
He has been moved from tackle to guard, and I think he's been. I mean, I'm not trying to say that he deserves to go to a Pro Bowl, but like I haven't watched him and thought consistently, "Oh my God, is he bad?" So I think his nose grew a bit. Great depth sort of stopped me. All right, last part of this game.
Okay.
Did Kevin O'Connell's nose grow when he addressed the center position, and in particular Garrett Bradbury?
Oh, that's.
Oh no!
Yeah, that is that. That
Mr.
was.
Bill.
I mean, he's
Dex.
He's accurate. I mean, he was built as an athletic center, and what he said. What you look for from a communication standpoint, we ask a lot of our center, and that's true. Got it. Especially in today's NFL, you got to ask a lot of them. They're not just a guy that hikes the ball. They're one of the smartest people on the football field, right? And I see a guy that has very good movement skills. And it's been a matter of finding the right fit for him. So that's interesting because I credit Gary Kubiak from back in the day of he came up with a zone blocking scheme, right, that was going to maximize the strengths and try to hide some of those weaknesses that Garrett Bradbury and this offensive line had. But I think Kevin O'Connell was doing the best he could. And the fact he also threw in Mason Cole into that, I think he did
a great job too. How much did he play? Yeah, okay.
That's the Batman backhanded slap compliment right there. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, I'm calling on Bradbury. I'm calling complete BS. I'm calling, and it's not that he's not a smart guy. I'm sure he's very smart, but ain't no way. Like the tackles, I'm buying. The guards, I was great depth, no, but I don't think. I think that you definitely need a starting right guard, but I think your left guard's in place. I really do. Garrett Bradbury, come on, man. Come on. You don't need to come. Yeah. You know what? We don't need that sunshine. That answer about Bradbury makes me more suspicious about everything O'Connell says.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think
find a way to avoid that one, right?
Yep. I think Kevin O'Connell needs a little bit of insurance there, and that's where a Federated Mutual Insurance Company come in. Federated is passionate about the care and enrichment of the next generation, just like Kevin O'Connell's cares about the next enrichment and care of the next offensive line. And at the heart of our civic and charitable focus is youth mentoring. That's what Federated does with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Kevin O'Connell does that with Garrett Bradbury, Mason Cole. Okay, that's exactly what he's trying to do. And Federated is a proud employees who are currently volunteering to be a big brother, big sister couple. And yet there are hundreds and thousands of children in southern Minnesota still waiting for a big Ignite Your Year and Empower Potential today. Consider this your personal invitation to learn more about Big Brothers and Big Sisters, federatedinsurance.com.
That's awesome. And you know what? So KOC seems like a really good guy. He really does, right? Like, he seems like a good guy, a likable guy. I found his response on Bradbury to be a little bit disconcerting. So I would like to personally, when he comes back to town, I would like to invite the young man to grab a beer with me. And when we grab that beer to talk about his responses when he's talking about players who have a good chance to not be starters, but were, I'd like to sit down and say, Kevin, I would like to have a couple beers from the first Surly Variety Pack of 2022. In fact, you know what? I'd say, here's a Furious for you. Go to a Havoc machine next. I will start with the Ghost Empire Dark Lager, and then I will go to, because I'm going to steal these for myself, the Hyper Modern Idaho 7 IPA, which I absolutely love. So that's what I would say. Kevin, let's sit down and enjoy a Surly Variety Pack, and let's think about when we answer questions about guys who are clearly first-round disappointments, if not busts. Kevin O'Connell has done something, though, Declan Goff, very smart. Now, I counted, we got another batch of I thought that it was done, but it was not. We got another batch of assistant coaches and strength guys being named to O'Connell's staff yesterday. I now count 26 assistants that go through the strength and conditioning staff. Okay. 26 of them. That is a remarkable amount. But here's the most intriguing one, I think, personally. Guy by the name of Ryan Cordell. All right. Now, I've got his resume right here because this name clearly is not going to ring bells. But Ryan Cordell is a guy who, according to what the Vikings put out, in 2014 was a San Francisco 49ers salary cap intern. In 2015, he became an offensive assistant. In 2016, he became a football operations coordinator for San Fran. And then in 17-18, he was a special assistant to the GM. So like, he rose through the ranks quickly. In 2019, he left to work for the Browns and spent 2 years as a football research analyst and coaching assistant. He is now going to join O'Connell's staff as the pass game specialist, but that's not the important part of the title. He is also has the title of Vikings Game Management Coordinator. Game Management Coordinator. And according to the team, he is going to be especially helpful to Kevin O'Connell during games, end of half situations. We will all recall that with Zim, especially this past season, the end of the halves were, for the most part, disastrous. This is exactly 1000% what Mackey and you and basically Madden fans have been talking about forever, that this team needs just an assistant who when the clock is ticking and the fur is flying, has the ability to only be focused on the game clock and the situations, not concerned about the personnel packages, not concerned about where, this player is hurt, only concerned about the actual situation involving the clock, the down, and what a team should do. The hiring of Ryan Cordell, which I believe it will be the first time the Vikings have ever had a coach or assistant like this, is one of the probably quietest, sneakiest, and smartest things that this team has done to get itself into the National Football League 2022.
Yeah, I want to know this guy's Madden record. I want to know how many online games and how many ultimate teams he has coordinated on his old Madden football games before. Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about. And to be honest, like we it's very easy for us as football fans to sit there and watch football on our TV, on our TCL TVs, and analyze the mistakes that coaches make in those pressure moments. But when you're out there, I gotta imagine it's difficult. There's so many things you're managing and trying to figure out and coordinating. And from Kevin O'Connell, who's not just trying to coach a football game, but also call the offense and dealing with all these distractions. Having a guy like this is probably going to help him. I mean, how many? Why aren't other teams employing this kind of guy more?
I think more teams are now, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I want to say that when McVay got the job with the Rams initially back now, what, Dex, 6 years, 5 years? It's been
a long time now. Yeah.
A while. He actually brought on a guy who's now gone, but a former Gopher assistant by the name of Jed Fish, who did exactly this. But I mean, it's just somebody who can basically be cognizant continually of one of the most important things. I've never gotten, and I think it was Phil who first brought this topic up with me like 4 or 5 years back. I've never understood, like, you have an assistant linebackers coach, right? And like you have all of these like nuanced, like trying to look for the detail coaches and research people, and that's all fine. That's great. But I've never gotten to your point just now, why you wouldn't be like, okay, my head coach might be really smart. Like my head coach might be a bleeping genius, but nobody's brain can keep track of everything at once. And as the clock ticks down, as the Vikings saw this past year, as the clock ticks down, there is nothing more important than that clock because it controls the game. So yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a smart thing, a huge thing, because if you're going to have reams of information, right? And like we vet everything now, analytics, right? Like we know every situation and we know what's smart and what's dumb. But then you don't have a person who can detach, basically. Like I want the person who is watching the clock to be as unexcited, as uninvolved, right? Like I don't want emotion. There is nothing worse than watching a head coach be ticked off at the referees for a call and looking, and Zim and Ticey both did this, looking at the scoreboard, seeing a replay and spiking the red flag. Like, yeah, I'm challenging that. Like fans love it. Yeah, that's great. Zim, go Zim. But the reality is that challenge is valuable. Like I want you to have somebody consulting you who has almost no in-game passion, like isn't caught up in the heat of the moment. So the hiring here of Ryan Cordell, to me, is a very, very important step in the Vikings changing.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it's just having the awareness of, hey, I need to delegate some of this stuff. I mean, Zimmer was a control freak, and at one point I think did do a good job of delegating when he first got on here, right? He hired Norv Turner.
Yeah,
hired Norv.
He always struggled and never admitted he stunk with the clock. Which is no shame. That's no shame. I'd struggle with it too.
So good for him to find someone that can hopefully help alleviate some of that. I think it's really impressive. There's a lot of guys on the coaching staff, and I think they did the right thing hiring a guy like this.
26 bleeping people, 26 guys. Now I think 3 or 4 are officially in the strength and conditioning role, but if you include them, 26. The one thing I've always been told is there is no salary cap on coaching staffs, and so there are teams that say screw it, we will hire and pay guys too. So, all right.
If I could be honest, if I come up with one job coordinator I could have in the Vikings, I think it'd be Chill Boys coordinator.
Oh,
Chill Boys coordinator. I would march right into. I'd kick open KOC's office and I'd say, Kevin, welcome to Minnesota. Here's a Surly Brewing Cup. Here's a Surly Furious for you, and also here's a pair of Chill Boys. You're gonna need these. You need these performance brands. You need that bamboo fabric. You need all the above. It's still wintertime. It might be getting warmer, but I'll tell you what, those long johns still fit nicely. Judd wears them all the time. He's a basketball player, and he puts his shorts over the top
with
of them.
The shorts on.
And his beloved thinks he's LeBron James walking around with his compression. She was your geek.
She thinks I'm a complete geek.
Never mind.
Nerd. But I don't really care about that because the Chill Boys are so comfortable. And I mean, that's the thing is O'Connell has to learn. He's not from here. He's got to learn about Surly. He's got to learn about Chill Boys. He's got to learn about all of these things that we in this state embrace. And then he's got to change the culture so that the Vikings can finally win, tackling off that first Super Bowl, which is the only goal of this show, Purple Daily, a Super Bowl championship. We don't care how you get there. We just want you to get there. Talk to you tomorrow on more Purple Daily.